ままで
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Third Impact Anime Podcast, where we live in a quiet and serene mountaintop village where we all basically live forever and weave magical tapestries that tell stories about Japanese animation. My name is Austin. I am the host of this here Third Impact Anime show, and with me I have the incredible Tori. How's it going, Tori?
Hi, I'm good.
Good. It's been a while since we've had you on the show. I've talked to you pretty much every day, but our listeners
Yeah.
haven't heard from you in a while. I think the last episode you were on was, oh man, was it the Animazement cast?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay. So it's been a while since we've had you on to talk about a series or a movie, and I know that you're pretty excited to talk about this one because we recently went to go see this movie just a couple days ago, and I think it sparked a lot of feelings for you in particular, I think. Would that be accurate?
It would be very accurate. I read so many comments from people being like, "Oh, I cried throughout the entire thing." And for anybody that knows me, I'm a very, very easy crier, and I made it up until the last 20 minutes not shedding a tear. I had emotions, but I wasn't crying. And then that last, 20 minutes hit, and I was just like sobbing, like deep. Like, I don't know if you felt me like sucking in air and blowing tears back out, but it was happening.
It wasn't just me, it was everyone else in that empty theater that was with us that felt it too.
Just you and I.
Yeah, so what exactly are we talking about today, Tori?
We are going to be talking about Maquia, When the Promised Flower Blooms.
Yes, we are. A movie recently put out by, oh gosh, what the heck is the name of that company? 11 Arts. Yeah, 11 Arts. The same people that put out A Silent Voice back earlier, or later last year, I want to say. So yeah, it was a really good movie, and we're going to talk about that this week on the Third Impact Anime Podcast that you are listening to right now. But before that, I guess we're going to do a little bit of catch up. So, Tori, just tell us a little bit about what you've been up to lately.
So I finally got a big boy job, and it's been very, very stressful. If I can ever get this training done with, I will be working as a flight attendant, which is probably the weirdest career choice I've ever made. Um,
How many free Biscoff cookies does that ensure you?
at least one.
That's a racket. You need at least. Come on.
Oh, I know. You're telling me.
I know it's been kind of a mixed bag for you, but it
Yeah,
seems like something that I think at least it could be fun if everything ends up working out.
for sure.
But you and I have been doing a surprisingly large amount of watching of stuff lately.
I know, which is
Um,
shocking for me.
yeah. Most of it, albeit, is not anime, but a lot of it is good. Most of it is very good. We are almost done with season 4 of Doctor Who,
For
and
sure, yeah.
I am personally I'm a longtime fan of Doctor Who. I've been into it for probably since like 2010 or so. So I guess not that long, not compared to the old fogies, that's for sure. But I've been into New Who for a while, and sort of got out of it for a long time until you expressed some interest in wanting to get into it. So we've
hmm
been watching most of it together. So what do you think of Doctor Who so far?
So I have been on the fringe of Doctor Who for a really long time. Like, most of my out of context knowledge comes from random like bits that I see on social media. And I've always been interested. I just never knew where to start. And like most of the people I knew at the time who were into Doctor Who were super obnoxious about it, so I didn't feel like I could sit down and actually like enjoy it. Um, but watching it with you has been really, really nice. I've been able to kind of just like take it at my own pace and not feel so obligated, I guess, to watch it. But it's been fun, and I, like you said, that my patience for the bad Doctor Who is apparently really good. But there have been a few episodes that there have been a few episodes that I didn't necessarily like, but I wasn't also like, God, I never want to watch this again.
Yeah, like I've told you that a couple times where I've sort of given you the red alert. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
Tori, this upcoming episode is really bad, so I hope you don't hate it. And like we've continued to push through, and you've been a trooper about it, and
Yeah.
we even got through that stupid Absorbaloff episode,
Oh, yeah.
and we've got another stinker coming up with the unicorn and the wasp.
No.
Uh, so Doctor Who is definitely a mixed bag, but how are you liking David Tennant compared to Chris Eccleston?
Um, he's fun. I think so far that he's probably my favorite, and I feel that he will continue to be my favorite. Um, I don't know. We'll see. I'm taking it season by season. But Tennant is definitely my number one. He does his best with everything he is given, even if it's not good.
And what do you think your favorite alien is so far?
Ood. The
Ood?
Oods, they're so good.
Yes, they are. Oh my gosh.
I don't think I'll ever forget us watching the Planet of the Oods episode and me just sobbing the entire time.
Yeah, because it's a real left turn from the way that the Ood are first introduced. Because the way that they're introduced in the Satan pit and all that stuff,
Yeah.
it's just like you kind of you don't really get a whole lot of like you kind of feel sympathetic towards them, but you don't really get that really deep sympathy for them and to really understand the pain that is Ood
Hmm.
until that Planet of the Ood episode, and then they really hit a home run with those with the way that they wrote those particular aliens.
Yeah. All the spooky ones so far too have been really, really interesting. Like the angels and the oh, what are the other ones? That were there pretty early on. The gas mask kids.
Oh yeah, yeah. The
Hmm.
I don't remember the name of that alien, but it's the whole like "Are you my mummy" meme.
Yeah. And then the half, the fish boys. They're also really cute.
That was a surprising thing because I had really kind of forgotten about the Hath because
Hmm.
I don't think they ever appear again after that, and I'd kind of
Yeah.
forgotten how kind of like weirdly sweet they are in the way that they're just kind of bubbling around doing their thing.
Yeah. And the the concept of the head of Bo or the face of Bo
Hmm.
is really, really interesting. From that one little foreshadowing in that one episode. So I'm excited to see where that goes, and I hope it gets brought up again, and I'm assuming that it probably does.
I guess we'll see. I
Yeah,
guess
I
we'll
guess
see.
we'll see.
Yeah. All right, so we've also been watching some Disney movies. We've been going through that Disney backlog. I've
Yeah.
been showing you a couple things that you've missed, and you've shown me a couple things that I've missed throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly in like the middle, early middle era. Like you showed me Sleeping Beauty and the Aristocats, and I
Mm-hmm.
showed you Mary Poppins. And is that all we've watched so far?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too. I really, really enjoyed Sleeping Beauty a lot.
Good.
The Aristocats, I'm a little bit half and half on.
Mm-hmm.
Like some parts of it I really enjoyed, and other parts I was like, it's all right. Um, but Mary Poppins, what would you think about Mary Poppins?
I thought it was really fun. As a kid, when that was put out on DVD and making its waves, I wasn't really watching, like, I wasn't interested in live action Disney movies. So that one, unfortunately, kind of flew over my head. um, so I never got to see it as a kid, but I really appreciated it watching it as an adult. It was really fun, and I knew most of the songs because when you're like ingrained in Disney culture, like you know the songs whether you've seen the movies or not.
Yep.
But I think it was a very good story about parents needing to be parents.
Yeah, definitely, and it's very nuanced because like the villain, if you want to call it, is like not a real villain. Like it's mainly just Mr. Banks being a workaholic, and I think
Yeah,
that's a really good way for them to do that film. And yeah, we need to really watch the Saving Mr. Banks biopic,
for sure.
even though it's not entirely completely historically accurate. I think it's just a really good movie in
That's
general, and
fine.
um, Tom Hanks does a really good portrayal of Walt Disney. They even touch on a little bit of some of the more, I guess, difficult aspects of Walt Disney's persona,
Yeah.
because he's definitely not always the Uncle Walt character that everybody sort of
Mm-mm.
thinks he is. He was
No,
a human
uh,
being with lots of flaws.
right. Walt Disney was definitely not the amazing, flawless man that everybody wants to make him, but that's okay.
Yeah, yeah,
That's how people are.
that's true. People are weird. Um, but yeah, like I said, Sleeping Beauty for me was awesome. I'd never seen it. Again, kind of went over or like under my radar back then. I never really had a huge interest in watching the Disney classics whenever I was a kid because I found them.
Unfortunate.
I mean, kids have bad taste. Like I thought those movies were kind of boring. Like I watched Dumbo and I was like, man, this is a snooze fest.
Oh man.
And I watched Bambi. I'm just like, oh man, this is even worse. What do you mean the credits?
Wow.
What do you mean the credits are at the beginning of the movie? What kind of racket is this? And that was kind of my idea of it whenever I was younger. But going back and watching Sleeping Beauty and just really being able to take in the magnificent background art and like some of those just amazing animated sequences are just really good, and everything Maleficent is awesome. And um I actually there was a lot more character of Aurora than what I had been led to believe.
Mhm.
Like she's definitely not in it a whole bunch, but she's not as absent as I expected her to be.
Yeah, I think she only has like 18 lines of dialogue.
She does, but I think people forget to follow that up with like this movie is only like an hour and 15 minutes long.
Mhm.
So, I mean, she's not in it for a whole lot, but it's also a short movie, so it kind of evens out.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it was really good. I liked that a lot. I liked how the prince was not just like super boring and dumb. He was actually kind of cool, even though he was mostly boring and dumb.
But we don't talk about him in the Festival of Fantasy parade.
Oh, why?
Okay, there is a lot that I really shouldn't speak about on this podcast, but sometimes, depending on the time of day, Prince Philip can be a little extra.
Okay.
And I'll just leave it at that.
All right, you heard it here first, folks. Prince Philip, depending on the time of day, can be a little extra. Oh, okay. So, yeah, with Aristocats, I think the biggest flaw of Aristocats is compared to the other movies of that particular Disney time period, it does not have as good of a villain.
I'll give you that.
I know that you really enjoy that movie, and I think you enjoy it for some excellent reasons. Probably
Hmm.
most of the reasons why you like that movie is are also like reasons that I like that movie.
Hmm.
But I think its lack of a very compelling villain is kind of a big shrug, unfortunately.
Yeah, I feel like they could have made him a little bit more sinister in like a Disney way.
Hmm.
Um, because if you, I don't know, let me not get that far ahead. But yeah, he definitely could have been a little more sinister. Like if I was a butler and I had spent all these years working for someone, and then they were like, hey, my entire estate and my millions of dollars are going to my four cats, I also would be very pissed.
Well, when you put it that way, it definitely makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I wouldn't try to kill them or like abandon them out in the middle of like nowhere, but I understand, I guess. But also, if I was in the position of the madam, I think I also would do the same thing.
Yeah, and I mean, we get to see Pat Buttram as that dog, like
That's
give
true.
him his what's for. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to see like all the sort of the Disney thing that they did back in that day where like they were cast the same actors
Mm-hmm.
in their movies like over and over for a period of time.
Right.
Like Pat Buttram as the dog in Aristocats was also the Sheriff of Nottingham in Robin
Right.
Hood. Baloo and O'Malley are like the same character.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of crazy just to see all that and to hear all that and me being such a big fan of both Robin Hood and the Jungle Book, like I feel like Aristocats was sort of like the missing piece of that trifecta that I hadn't really consumed yet. So
Mm-hmm.
now I feel like a more complete person now that I've seen the
Good.
Aristocats. So that
You're
very good.
welcome.
Thank you, thank you. We also saw the Mr. Rogers documentary, which was really
Mm-hmm.
excellent. That was fun. Very sweet movie.
Oh yeah.
Please go out there and see that. Mr. Rogers was a really, really unique person with a lot of very positive feelings and ideas about the world that is very inspirational, especially in our tumultuous day and age as it is.
Mm-hmm. And I
Um,
think it's something that you really can enjoy, no matter the capacity that you took his show in, or him as a person, because it does a very good job of like teaching you about him. And I thought it was a very like in a very neutral way. Like it wasn't trying to slander him, and it wasn't trying to like put him on too much of a pedestal. But he
mhm.
very much was a kind man who had some rough patches, but eventually came around and accepted more people and helped as many people as he could. I think my favorite part is when they were talking about like all the pranks that they pulled on each other
Oh yeah,
during the filming. I think that's one of the best parts.
with the guy like pulling his pants down.
Yeah,
That was funny, man.
it sure was.
And having all those people that worked so closely with him in those situations and like on production and like in his personal life and all that stuff, just a really really interesting perspective to hear about that guy. But anyway, I guess that's enough about not anime. I guess we're gonna move into our anime topic. Hey guys, we're back and we're ready to talk about Maquia. But real quick, if you guys like the podcast that you are listening to, or if you have enjoyed any of the panels of ours that you have seen us do at conventions, please consider following us on our variety of social media pages and accounts and whatnot. You can find us most easily over on Facebook at facebook.com/Third Impact Anime. We recently started a group over there, and it's been going pretty well. We've got a small little community growing. We're using the group to like share news and share podcast stuff and convention pictures and all that sort of stuff. And we're kind of building some good conversations over there. Everybody's been playing anime bingo, and that's been really fun. That's kind of the hot meme right now, and
It's a good pure
I
meme.
it really is. I mentioned that in the Haruhi episode, which actually I think that episode by this point will already be out. But just to give you guys a timeline, I recorded the Haruhi episode yesterday, so Tori and I are on the ball getting another episode out here. So I hope you guys enjoyed the Haruhi episode. I definitely enjoyed recording it, and Tori, hopefully you enjoy listening to it. Um,
I'm sure I will.
so yeah, if you want to find out more about our podcast and all that stuff, you can find us on a bunch of different podcast platforms, including the one that you're using to listen to it right now. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, all that stuff, YouTube as well. And yeah, you can find us pretty much everywhere. Twitter, we have a Twitter as well. Twitter is twitter.com/TI_anime, and you can find a bunch of information about us there and keep up with the show, keep up with our panels, and all the fun stuff that we're doing all the time. So now that that stupid plugging and stuff is out of the way, I guess we'll go ahead and talk about the movie. Is that good with you, Tori?
Absolutely.
Cool. So we are talking about Maquia When the Promised Flower Blooms, or in Japanese, it is known as Sayonara no Asa ni Yakusoku no Hana o Kazaro. I probably did not pronounce much of that correctly.
Not at all.
Uh, Not at all. Sorry. Okay. My apologies. But
You were
anyway,
close. You were close.
thank you. Thank you. So that translates to let's decorate the promised flowers in the morning of farewells. So slight difference there in the English and Japanese titles, but I think it gets the general message across pretty well. So this film was written and directed by Mari Okada. This is actually her directorial debut. But Mari Okada is definitely not a newcomer to anime by any means. She is a very, very popular, very prolific screenplay writer and scenario writer for anime of probably like the last 10 or 15 years or so. It's pretty likely that if any of you out there have been watching watching any anime series that have come out within the last 10 or 15 years, more than likely you have run into a show that she has been a part of in some way. Like, for example, she wrote the screenplays for Anohana, Anthem of the Heart, Kisniver, Mobile Suit Gundam, Iron-Blooded Orphans, Kofuku Graffiti, Black Butler, Toradora, AKB 0048, Blast of Tempest, and literally a billion other things from a ton of different genres and styles and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, she's very, very popular, but this is the first anime series, or anime movie rather, that she was the director on. Production on this film was handled by Studio PA Works, who you may know from series such as Angel Beats and Another, and The Eccentric Family, Shirobako, Sakura Quest, and most recently Uma Musume Pretty Derby, which is a show that I really need to catch up on because I actually kind of enjoyed those running horse girls. It was kind of a good show. The music for this film was composed by the legendary Kenji Kawai, who has worked on a truly stupid amount of productions during his career. He's been working on anime since the late 80s, and he's also done some live action work as well. He composed the music on the original Ghost in the Shell films. He worked on a bunch of iterations of the Patlabor franchise. He worked on a bunch of music for Ranma One Half. He did the music for the Devilman OVA from the 80s, and he's
Wow.
also worked on a bunch of recent stuff like Eden of the East and The Perfect Insider and Mob Psycho 100. He's also worked on a bunch of live action stuff, including composing all of the music for the Ring series,
Huh.
which I know is something that you're very much a fan of, Tori.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yep, he composed the music for all of those movies, at least the original ones. I'm not sure if
Uh-huh.
he's I don't know. How many of those movies are there?
Too many.
To a minute? Yeah, okay. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's just like The Grudge at this point where there's so many that it's impossible to keep track of them.
I gotcha. He worked on at least the ones from like the early 2000s. I'm not sure if
Mm-hmm.
he's worked on all of them, but he
Okay.
also did the music for the live action Death Note movies from the
Cool.
2000s. He's worked on the music for the Ip Man franchise and worked on a couple of more recent Ultraman works, including like one of the TV shows and one of the movies, I believe. So according to Mari Okada, this was the last PA Works production where the president and founder of Studio PA Works, Kenji Horikawa, would be serving as a line producer on any work moving forward. So that's an interesting little note there, because he's the president and founder of the studio, but he had still worked in production, at least on some level, and apparently he's going to be retiring from doing that after this film. But if Miyazaki teaches us anything about retirement, that retirement is just a word, folks. It's just a word. Who knows what it means? Um, Maquia has already won a couple of awards, most notably best animation at the Shanghai Film Festival for this year, I do believe. So yeah, Maquia. It's got some interesting pedigree going on. It's Mari Okada's first work, and got Kenji Kawai on music, so pretty solid production, at least from that point of view. So, Tori, do you want to take us through the voice cast of this show or
Yeah.
this movie? I keep calling it a show. It's a movie, Austin. It's a
It's
movie.
definitely a
All right.
movie.
Yes.
Anyway,
Okay.
so this movie has actually a really interesting voice cast, and as I was going through looking up some of these, I was genuinely surprised, and it was really cool to see how some of these voice actors had previously worked together on shows and other forms of media. But Makia herself is voiced by Monica Iwami, and she is a very, very sort of newcomer into voice acting in general. I personally haven't seen anything she's been in other than this movie, but she voiced Hotaru in New Game and Kotoko in Urahara. Um, then we have Irano as Ariel. Um, and he is voiced, surprisingly enough, by the same voice actor as Sora from Kingdom Hearts,
Yay, my
which
boy.
is really wild. He also played Jintan and Anohana and Haku in Spirited Away.
That man has been in so much.
I was like in awe of his voice work credits. I was just wow. We have Rina Sato as Mido, which is the single mom who takes in Makia and basically sort of, well, very much so teaches her how to be a mother and take care of this orphan baby that she has found. Um, she has also played Ange in Umineko. She was Shura in Blue Exorcist and Rei in Sailor Moon Crystal, as well as Makoto in Persona 5, which is really, really neat. We have Ai Kayano as Lelia, who was Makia's friend, the one you see in the beginning who jumps off of the tall thing. Was it a wall? I don't remember.
She's
It
like,
was
hey,
like,
look what I can do.
I can fly! She was Menma in Anohana, also voiced Darkness in Konosuba, and Futaba in Amanchu. We have Yuki Kaji as Krim. I really feel like I shouldn't have to tell you who Yuki Kaji is, but anyway, he voiced Eren in Attack on Titan. He was Yukine in Noragami and Ayato in Tokyo Ghoul. We have Miyuki Sawashiro as Racine, who was the elder that took care of Maquia and taught her how to make hibiol. She was really impressive too. Another voice actress that I was surprised at the credits she had under her belt. She was Sulti in Darawara, Kanburu in the Monogatari series, and Shion from Psycho Pass. We have Yoshimasa Hosoya as Lang, who is Mido's older son, who later in the story eventually is reunited with Maquia after joining the army. He was Odabek in Yuri on Ice and Reiner in Attack on Titan. We have Yoko Hikasa as Dita, who was the child who bullied Ariel, and eventually marries him and has a baby when they're older. Huh?
I was just laughing, making a
Oh.
giggle.
She was voiced by Mio, or same voice actress as Mio from K-On!, and also she played Satan in Umineko.
She was voiced by Mio from K-On!
Stop! She had the same voice actress as Mio from K-On! I corrected myself,
There,
I
there.
think, maybe.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Carry on. It's all good.
We have Misaki Kuno, who voices Medmel, which is the fourth child between Lelia and the Prince of Mezarte, who was voiced by the same voice actress as Nico in Kisniver and Bridget in Ore Emo.
Blah, blah. Puh.
Stop. You're gonna offend people.
I don't care.
Anyway, next we have Tomokazu Sugita, who voices Izor, which I guess we're still very confused, but we do believe he is the soldier that was guarding Lelia. And this is the same voice actor as Yusuke in Persona 5, Joseph Joestar in good old JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and he also
Hey,
voiced Kyon in Haruhi.
which we just talked about.
And this is my maybe third personal favorite off this list, and I had a sneaking suspicion it was this voice actor when I heard this character speak. But we have Hiroaki Hirata, who also is another voice actor that I feel like I shouldn't have to introduce, but here we are. He plays Baro, which is the half Yorf merchant. I guess he was a merchant. I don't know. A thief, something. Um, in the movie, and he also is known for Jack Sparrow in the Kingdom Hearts series. Sanji in One Piece, and my personal favorite, Kotetsu from Tiger and Bunny.
Is he the dad one?
He is the good dad one.
Nice, nice.
Yes, a single father, mind you.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
That ties really well into this movie.
Oh, it does, yeah. And he
Yeah,
also was
yeah.
Klein in Sword Art Online.
Oh, neat. Whatever.
Anyway, go on.
Cool. All right, so just a quick little synopsis of the movie before we jump into our thoughts on it. So the film takes place in basically a Tolkien-esque, like, magical world, very swords and sorcery kind of realm. It's got this, but it also has this big focus on, like, nature and the natural world and, like, the harmony between, like, people and nature and other races and beings and whatnot. And then we start off by meeting our main character, Maquia, and she is a member of the Yorf race. Which is a race very similar to, like, elves, how elves are typically portrayed.
They remind me a lot of the Lalafell race from Final Fantasy XIV. Like, if you Google that when you get the chance, I think you'll see it.
Like in the way that they work, or like
The
the way
no
that
no
they
no
look?
the way that they look aesthetically.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Hmm.
So basically they're kind of like elves in the sense that they live very incredibly long lives and they don't really age to any great degree. Like this particular film takes place over pretty much a lifetime, so like probably 80 years or so. Um, and it like Maquia herself never ages really. Like she looks basically the same whenever we first meet her to whenever the film is over. That's just the way that the Yorf work. They're basically ageless creatures that can die. They can be killed. They're not immortal, but they just age very, very slowly. So Maquia ends up working for one of the elder Eorfs in the village, who tells her about the Hebiol, which Tori mentioned earlier. The Hebiol is basically this tapestry that the orphan people weave to tell the story of their pasts. It looks, to the viewer, to us, normal men, it sort of looks just like any average like scarf or cloth or anything like that. But the Yorf can read it, like the way that they do their writing and their language is expressed in this tapestry called the Hebiol. Like there's no images or pictures or anything on it. It's just woven fabric, and that's how they tell stories, which I thought was a really interesting concept. I like that a lot. So the elder basically, she tells Maquia that it's very, very important that the Yorf people do not make significant connections with other people in the outside world, because that will eventually cause the Yorf to feel loneliness forever. Like she doesn't say it exactly like that, but that's basically the idea that she tries to get across to Maquia, and as you could probably assume, that idea does come up, pretty significantly later on. So one day, an army of men from this kingdom named Mazarte, which we've also brought up, they invade the Eorf's peaceful homeland, riding on these massive dragon creatures. I forget the name exactly of the race of dragons that they're called, but we'll just call them dragons because that's what they are. They invade the Eorf's homeland. They kill most of their population. They kidnapped Maquia's friend Lelia. And then it's revealed that this particular kingdom of men, they've been kidnapping different magical races, including those dragons that they're riding on, to basically harness the power of like magical beings and things for like to build up their kingdom, to build up the lineage of their royal family, and to just basically assert their dominance in the world of men by using the power of other magical races. So during this invasion, Maquia does successfully run away, but then as she's running away, she happens upon a ravaged caravan, where she finds a mother who has been killed, but her newborn baby is still alive, and the mother is sort of cradling this baby, but she has already passed. Um, and then she decides to rescue this baby so that it doesn't die, and she decides to take the baby on as her own and to sort of just raise him the best that he can, and she names him Ariel, and they sort of become a mother-son sort of relationship. The movie goes through a lot of time jumps, going through Ariel's life, showing him grow up, but Maquia, being an Eorf, sort of stays the same age and doesn't age at all. But she continues to try and provide for him as he grows older, and then the film basically goes on there to a very wonderful but very bittersweet and sometimes very dark fantasy story that I found very enjoyable, and I think that you would agree, Tori.
Absolutely. Despite those moments where I was kind of confused amongst those time skips, I can't really think of anything else that was such a glaring issue for me. I mean, of course, there are some little nitpicks I have, but um, given the overall um, message and everything else the movie gave me, I can kind of overlook that.
So I guess let's talk about that, but we'll talk about the issues in a minute. But I guess let's just talk about like generally what did you think of the movie? Like walking out of the theater, what did you think?
Um, I felt satisfied. I wish a few more things would have been explained a little more clearly, but I just felt good. I felt fulfilled. But I just had this very warm feeling on the inside.
And I think that's perfectly valid for this film because I think that's kind of how Mari Okada tells her stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like she tells the her stories with a lot of emotion and a lot of feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that is what you're supposed to walk away from whenever you're
Yeah.
watching something Mari Okada related.
Oh yeah.
Like it's not the story of Anohana that gets you, it's just the emotions and the characters in it that are
Mm-hmm.
just what has left such a big impression, at least for that particular work. And I think that's what Maquia does as well. And
I guess as someone that's always been in like a pick your family situation, I think that's what got to me a lot. Um, because it very much is that to a degree, and the the scene where like um Ariel and Dita, they like he comes back and he sees his baby for the first time, and just like to paraphrase, they're like, let's love her so she can go on and love somebody else. And I was just like, oh no. And I think that's very important because like um we're not sure about Dita, but like Ariel, for example, like even though he was an orphan, he was taken in by Maquia and given that love. Like she wasn't sure what to do in multiple occasions, but she still like all throughout his life up until the very end had such strong love for him, and then that helped him have his own family and live out his life and things like that. And I love kids, and just as somebody who like at some point I guess wants to be a mom, it was just very like over emotional for me. If any of that made sense.
yeah, yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think in reading reading back again about some of the plot elements before preparing for this podcast, I had forgotten that Maquia was an orphan. I
Mhm.
didn't
Yep.
I had forgotten about that, so that's an interesting little tie that they brought back into that with her, finding an orphan boy in Ariel and sort of raising him, and giving him the love that she didn't have, and then watching him through his relationship with his wife later on, sort of pass that on as well. So, and it really does go into that whole idea of like you sort of give the love that you're given. That's
Yeah.
not always true because obviously some people are in really tough family situations where there is no love at all, and then they sort of have to learn the hard way how to love other people because they weren't loved properly.
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's something that a lot of people deal with. And I think that Maquia as a character, she doesn't always make the right decision, but she always tries really really hard to give Ariel the best like opportunities that he can be given, and to
Mm-hmm.
just give a chance for them to survive,
Right.
because she's very ostracized, being very different.
Mm-hmm.
She's recognized as sort of like an other in the community,
Mm-hmm.
and she's kind of always on the run because she knows that she isn't your person, and like
She's
she has
a
this
orphan.
a
I'm sorry.
I mean, you're right. But yeah, she's always dealing with that, and like can't be anything but stress. But she still tries her hardest to provide for her
Mm-hmm.
son, and I think that's
Right.
just a beautiful beautiful plot thread through this
Mm-hmm.
film.
But absolutely, because like I didn't have that situation to such an extreme as some people that I know did, but I was like a single child or single parent child for a long time. But that's not the case anymore. But like people I know who still are in a single parent household. I mean, they're older now, so the circumstances are different, but they always have stories of like, yeah, I hardly saw my mom or dad at home because they were always working, working, working. So I could have clothes, or we could eat, or I could go to college. Meanwhile, their parent is wearing clothes that they've probably burnt holes in and things like that. And I think that's very admirable. It's like it it hurts my heart to know people are in that situation, but it's just such a good thing to know that people like parents like this love their children so much that they would give up what they have and like they're comfortable. I'm about to cry.
That's fine.
It's just like those parents, they give up everything that would make them comfortable and them happy to see their child succeed so they know that their child can go on and help their children and their friends and their family succeed as well.
Right, right.
So,
And we see that generational passing of the torch of love and care and affection,
mhm,
uh, pretty well, conveyed in this film in the way that it plays out. It's just sort of it's wrapped around this like very interesting fantasy setup, but
mhm.
the emotions and the themes presented in the film are, very real, very human, very relatable.
Yeah.
Like, Maquia as a character progresses sort of beyond her appearance. Like her appearance
Mhm,
is one thing, and that's sort of because of plot, but it really doesn't matter so much. Like she's
mhm.
still, you know, is the provider, and then eventually sort of moves on from her son, as parents have to do whenever their children grow up and all of that,
Right.
and allow him to sort of live his life on his own.
Mhm. And I think it's interesting, like the situation, even though it was set in a high fantasy, it just kind of like piggybacking off of what I said a moment ago. It felt real,
Hmm.
especially in those scenes too, where like she was going through the town and trying to find a job and things like that, and you would see the people um, kind of like look at her funny. They would talk down to her. They wouldn't even give her a chance as far as jobs go because of her child's situation.
Yeah.
And that's things that single parents deal with on a day to day. And I see it more with single mothers, but like I know it happens with single fathers too.
Of
So
course, yeah.
that there just kind of was like solidifying the uh, what's the word I'm looking for?
The concept.
Yeah, thank you. It really
Mm-hmm.
solidified the concept of what they were trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Also, completely off topic, I just want to like throw this in before I forget, but apparently some elements of the story were inspired by like uh, Mari Okada's relationship with her own mother.
Mm.
And I think that comes across really well. Like, I tried to read more into that, but I couldn't find a whole lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's always best to draw your inspiration from things that happen to you personally. So I found
Right.
that interesting.
And her autobiography is available on the in English pretty easily. So I'm sure that I mean I bought it. I haven't read too much of it, but I'm sure that she goes into her relationship with her parents and whatnot in that
Hmm.
autobiography, and that would be interesting to read about. So yeah, good thought bringing that up.
Yeah.
But I guess one scene towards the beginning that really stood out to me, and I guess we this is a good springboard to talk about at least one specific thing, is that whenever she shows up at what was her name, the mother's house,
Oh,
um,
but,
Racine, no.
nope, that was the elder. Mito.
Mito, yeah. Whenever she shows up at Mito's farm for the first time, like she sort of happens upon this other single mom who's raising two kids of her own, and like Maquia shows up to her farm, and like the mom finds her in the barn, like trying to get Ariel to drink milk from a goat. And then Maquia just looks at her with this like awful face, and she's just like, he won't drink it.
No, she starts crying, I think, and oh God, that look
Yes,
on her face though. She just starts to cry and she's like, I don't know how udders or boobs work.
that's right. Yeah, that's what she said. You're right.
Yeah,
Oh man, like that scene was both like just like a huge awe moment, and it
I
was also
know.
like, man, she's trying so hard. And it was also funny too. Like
I
that scene was
know.
just brilliant.
I know. It
And
really it like humanized her, if that makes sense, cuz like,
it did.
she's like this sort of immortal-ish being, but to know that she can like I don't know, have these struggles that a normal person would have really just humanizes her more, I guess. And the thing is like besides her being an immortal-ish being, she was so normal. Like was trying to be as normal as she could given the
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, I mean, she was just very very human in the
Hmm.
characteristical sense. Like she's definitely another, sort of otherworldly being, but she expresses the same sort of ideas and anxieties and fears as anyone else does.
Hmm.
And and yeah, and sort of the theme of like paying it forward continues to pop up here, like
Hmm.
because Mito, that was her name, right?
Mito, yes.
Mito like sort of taught her how to be a mom in one way. Like then we see the fruits of that come up later on, where she's she learns how to be a mom. She learns how to like provide for her kid, and then like he ends up doing the same thing. Like he joins the military, he gets his job, he wants to provide for his kid as well. And then towards the end of the film we find out that cycle has continued, life goes on, and all that stuff. So it's interesting to see just like the weaving of the tapestry of life, and they definitely,
Hey.
hey, yeah, they really sort of do that a lot in this film, very very purposefully. And they bring that back in as well. Like they talk about like how like these people are all part of my Hebial, my life tapestry, and all that stuff. Um, so yeah, it's a wonderful way to sort of tie that stuff in. But and there are also some interesting real world issues that they go into as well. Like
Hmm.
a lot of it, there's a lot of themes of motherhood, like we've sort of outlined a lot of already. and the sacrifice that goes along with the situations that you find yourself in, or the people that you love, and being
Mhm.
and having to take care of them and all that stuff. And there are also a lot of themes of like identity and how like you fit into a world, and like how your differences can oftentimes be a significant struggle if you don't necessarily fit in, or you know work so well in a particular community based on a myriad of different factors,
Mhm.
like because Maquia was in hiding from the military, and because she looked so different than everyone else, like she was forced to dye her hair for years, decades even, just to fit in, so that she wouldn't look so much different than everyone else. And because no one because she didn't want anyone to find out that she was an immortal, like as Ariel ended up getting older, going into adolescence, going into his teenage years, she eventually had to stop, referring to herself as his mother, and change to I'm his sister, and so on and so forth, because she, could not reveal her true identity and her true sort of lineage as a member of the Eorf.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that the plight of Lelia was another good sort of flip side to sort of what Maquia had to deal with. And I thought that seeing her issues on her end of the story was also very compelling and interesting, um, because she is sort of like the opposite side of the coin from Maquia, because Maquia easily could have ended up in the same exact situation that Lelia found herself in, and there were many times where, as the audience, we thought that was the direction it was going to go. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you thought about Lelia's character and her struggles?
Um, yeah. So I found it very, very interesting that in the beginning, Lelia is shown as this like free spirited, like tomboy who is just very, I'm gonna do what I want when I want to do it type character. And then when they introduce Maquia, she's kind of like reserved and to herself. I mean, still like friendly, but just to herself. And then once we get to that part, we see Lelia in this very rigid, like, I'm going to be a princess and I have to abide by this set rule and things like that. But and I think she said something along the lines of like, I'm can't believe you get to be out here doing whatever you please. It wasn't quite that, but
Yeah, so it was
um,
something like that.
Tamakia, and so they had that like weird role reversal, I guess, where Maquia
Hmm.
was able to be out and kind of do what she wanted, and she was out of her shell, and then Lelia was just hidden away, having to be upright, dignified. Um, I wish we could have seen more of what she was going through, but
Hmm.
I did. I think the cuts between the story were done very well. Um, I wish they would have given me more to care about Lelia. Like I was sympathetic to what she was going through because like wow, that situation's really awful. Um Not to mention like I just kept thinking about it the entire time like her baby was more than likely a product of assault.
Right, exactly.
Um and I know that that is something that women struggle with every day and I could not imagine carrying a child like that, you know?
Yeah.
So that was kind of stuck in the back of my mind, but at the same time, yeah, I wish they would have given me more to care about her. Like they set her up as someone who I thought was going to be interesting and a good part of the story, but I just felt like it kind of like it I felt like it kind of fell flat.
A little bit. I mean, I don't. She didn't fall flat in completely for me, because like I was able to sort of fill in those blanks a little bit by like process of assumption. But I mean, you're definitely right. She could have used some more like character time, because we don't really we know Lelia kind of by what happens to her, but we don't really get to necessarily experience so much of that through her character
Right.
necessarily. Like basically the only little character moments we get is like a little bit towards the end, and then that little bit at the beginning, and then
Hmm.
seeing her frustration and her distaste for her lifestyle sort of splintered in throughout. And
Right.
I did think that that moment where Krim appears and tries to confront her and take her away, and she's basically like, I don't want to go with you because I have basically accepted that my people are dead,
Hmm.
and the only thing I really have to live for now is the thought of getting to see my daughter again.
I feel some kind of
And
way about that.
okay, yeah, we'll talk about that next.
Yeah, I
But just the fact that she had basically resigned herself to her fate and sort of given up on, you know, her past. Um I mean, it's I think it's definitely understandable. I do not fault her for that
hmm.
because, you know, once you go through like so much significant trauma of that
Oh
of in
yeah.
that way, like your priorities sort of shift,
Oh yeah.
and she just didn't have the same drive or value set for the same things as she did, you know, back before all of this stuff happened to
Hmm.
her.
Right. And I really, really was hoping that she would go with him. Because just from those few shots, during the beginning, like they just seemed so in love, and she just seemed so happy to be around him and in his presence. And
Yeah.
so I was just like, come on, come on, come on, come on. Like, remember, you love him. He loves you. Just go. And, but you're right. Trauma causes you to do really, really wild things. So,
Yeah. And just the fact of all the things that she went through, and like the fact that her life changed so much, like she kind of just accepted it, whereas
hmm.
Krim sort of fought back. And it's sort of like another, you know, two sides of the same coin sort of thing,
Yeah.
where we see, you know, two very valid responses to like the same issue,
Hmm.
that really sort of highlights the breadth of what, you know, sort of you know what your experiences are and how they shape your decisions for in one way or another.
Oh, yeah.
So I know you had an issue with what her resolution was at the end. So go ahead and voice your issue with it, and then I'll give you my thought follow up thoughts because I have
Okay,
an idea. I have an idea.
I'm very curious as to your response to
Okay.
this, but
Okay.
what really got under my skin, I guess, was the fact that we had all these scenes of Lelia being like, I want to see my child. I need my child to know that I exist. I I want to meet her. I need to see her. And then she does finally, and then she just leaves. And that was so unsatisfying. It's like you had your chance to take your child with you and live your life with her, but you left her there. And I'm sure maybe she thought that Medmel would have better care being left at the palace or the castle or whatever the heck. Um, but at the same time, she had just made so much fuss, and for her to just leave with Maquia felt so unsatisfying.
Okay. So my counterpoint to that
Uh huh.
is that that whole scene ties back into what the elder said in the very beginning of the movie,
Okay.
which is if you make those connections to people, you know, from the outside, you will eventually end up alone. And
Mm-hmm.
I think shortly before that scene, Makia also realizes that,
Right.
and that's why she goes ahead and leaves Ariel and his wife for what we can assume is many, many decades.
Well, it had to be.
Exactly, it had to have been. And she, you know, big spoiler warnings for the very end of the film, so please go watch it, but big spoiler warnings for the end of the film. We don't see her return to Ariel until he is an old man and
On his
it's
deathbed.
his death day, and he is on death's doorstep, and she visits him as he's dying and then leaves. So I think that that scene, the scene where Lelia makes the decision to leave her daughter behind, happens after the war is over, and you know clearly we're shown that Medmel is safe and she is cared for, and that sort of Lelia knows that she's in a good place.
Mhm.
And she got the resolution of being able to meet her daughter for the first time, speak to her, tell her who she is, make that connection, and then it was just time to go.
Mhm.
That's the way I read it, at least.
I'll
And we
give
see
you
the
that.
same, and we see the same thing with the dragon as well. Like the plight of the dragons and the Eorf is very similar. Um, like it happens off screen before the film, but it's sort of implied early on that like this kingdom has been kidnapping these dragons to basically use them as beasts of war to sort of increase their military might. And as the years go by, like these dragons start developing this really bad illness, like the red eye disease or something like that, and they end up like going crazy and then dying. And by the time the ending of the film comes around, there's only one dragon left, and Maquia frees that dragon and rides it off into the unknown, basically into the sunset, with Lelia as well. So I see that as like the coming full circle of the idea in the beginning. It's
Mhm.
like if Lelia stuck around, like I don't she would just have to watch her daughter grow old and die, and I don't know if
That's
that's
true.
the kind of life that she wanted to live. It's clearly not the life that Makia wanted to live either. So, I mean, I can only fault them so much. Like I definitely hear you about that, about how she really wanted to be with her daughter and then just kind of left, but I'm like, is there really any other option there?
No, you're right.
Like I don't know. Like it's such a tough thing, and that's why like whenever I think about would I want to be immortal, I immediately follow that up with absolutely not.
I don't think I'd
Because
mind it.
I don't know. I might not mind it for a while, and then I don't know. It'd be weird. Thankfully, I don't think I'll ever have to make that decision. All right. So, were there any other characters or specific themes of this film that you wanted to go into that you can think of?
Um, Not really uh character wise. I know you had some feelings about the one guy. um my thing is we rarely get movies about platonic love,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to families. Because I don't know, most of the movies I think of are about like dysfunctional families with no real resolution, right? But
Right.
it made me so happy to like go throughout this entire movie and just like feel that way. Like
Mm-hmm.
I wish more media would handle things like that. Like, not everything has to be a romance story. Don't get me wrong, I love those when they're well done, but not everything has to be a romantic love. There are so many forms of love,
Mm-hmm.
and to see a whole movie focus on, like I said, that platonic family love was just really incredible. Like, it was just amazing. That on top of like the message of great things can come out of bad situations. I think that's also very important, because though that's like the thing is I feel sometimes no matter how bad your situation might be, unless it's something very, very, very extreme, I feel like you can find at least one good thing to kind of keep yourself grounded, and that resonated very strong in this movie, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And going back to what you said about like, platonic familial relationships and all that stuff, like I would say a great pair to this film would be something like Wolf Children,
Oh, absolutely.
which, is again sort of like a fantasy sort of take on like a parent-child relationship and all of the perils and pitfalls and possibilities of that. Um, it's just kind of in reverse here, where like the parent is the mysterious like mythical creature and all that stuff, but
Right.
it sort of plays out in the same way. It's very much a story about parents and kids, really hammering home that single moms are the heroes of the world,
Basically
and
goddesses.
basically, yeah, and how they just deserve all the respect and the love ever, and the how the when the community bands together to help out a single mom, that's like the best thing that it can do,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why what's her name? Gosh, I can't keep forgetting her name. But the other mom character is just also so great because she's such a wonderful mentor to Maquia.
She really is.
She is like the way that she slaps her belly. And she's like, "I'm a
I'm a
mom."
mother. I can't cry.
Exactly, yeah. And even though, gosh, Maquia cries so much in this
I
movie, but
know. She's
like
a bit of a crybaby, but that's okay.
she is, and that's another thing that I really like about Mario Okada works. Like, there are definitely some issues with this film that I'll touch on very briefly, but I don't think they're big enough issues to like break the movie for me. They're just like a little bit of like filmmaking nitpicks I have. But one
Hmm.
thing I really like about Mario Okada works is that she's really not afraid ever to make her characters show deep emotions. And I think she only gets better at that as she goes along. Like we were talking about this maybe like last week or so. Like I watched Toradora way after I watched Anohana, and just watching Toradora and that being one of Mario Okada's like earlier sort of melodramatic teen drama works, um, and then seeing what she did in Anohana, it's a huge difference. And
Hmm.
Anohana just does that so much better and in such a more genuine way and a more heartfelt way and a more poignant way, and it just really tugs at your heartstrings
Yeah.
in just so much harder,
Hmm.
and it just makes Toradora feel like kind of whatever.
Yeah.
And Maquia sort of rides that Anohana wave. So
Hmm.
again, if you really liked Anohana, I think you will enjoy Maquia a lot as well. And so yeah, this movie's real good. I did want to talk about a couple of my smaller issues with it. It has some weird like geographical like dissonance, I
Oh
guess.
yeah.
Like there are some scenes where like some characters like jump around in space and it's kind of jarring. Like it stood out to me, especially in one scene like towards the end, where like I thought Ariel was in one place and then he shows up in a scene in another place. And that was a little bit jarring. But again, not a huge problem. Also, it's kind of poorly established which character the prince is. Like, you and I were very confused. Like, we were talking to each other during the movie. We're just like, is the knight guy the prince? No, there's no way because he's too nice to be the prince. Like, that doesn't make sense. So, the prince character is a little bit ill established. Like, he's supposed to be the guy that is like, uh, taking, trying to make Lelia his queen so that they can, introduce the Eorphan blood into the royal line and all that stuff. And we don't really get a great idea about who the prince is, and he's a really, really poorly developed character anyway, because we barely know who he is. How could he be developed? But anyway, um, and like the one like half Eorf like merchant dude that popped up like in the beginning and in the end, like if you had taken that character out of the movie entirely, I don't think the movie would have changed like at all. He reminded me a lot of Billy Bob Thornton's character in Princess Mononoke.
Ah.
You remember the guy that like jumps around on those really tall shoes?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
He was just kind of like this somewhat sleazy guy that knows a whole lot of stuff because he's been around town for a while, and he doesn't really do much. I don't know. I wish there was a little bit more that he did. But again, these are all just sort of nitpicks, and I know that this movie was originally had a whole lot more in it that they had to cut. So that was probably just some things that were more fleshed out in other drafts of the story that sort of just carried over into the final
Hmm.
product. But I think regardless, it's a really good movie. I think you should definitely check it out. If you like things that will make you cry, if you like really strong character relationships, if you like some things that have some social commentary going on there as well, especially with like uh like uh like I guess like women's issues and abuse and trauma and things like that, and like there's an ounce of genocidal commentary in there as well. So fun for the whole family. All that cool stuff. All right, so I guess in closing, we'll talk about a couple more things. So, if you had to nail down what you think like the lesson of this movie is, or what this movie is trying to tell the audience, like
Mhm.
what do you think it would be?
Moms are good.
I think that kind of nails it. Yep, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Um, I think also a little bit bigger than that might be that just life goes on.
To quote my father, life finds a way.
Yeah, dinosaurs, find a way. That's true, and how it's important to love people and to
Absolutely.
share love because if you share love, that means other people are gonna share love too, and that's good. Become a part of your life tapestry and all that junk. I would agree. So, as sort of a general thing, like Tori, do you like Mario Okada stuff?
Um, from what I've seen, yes. For me, um, I I I have a little bit of a blinder on because I'm just like, okay, female director, great. um, but my thing is when she's good, God, she's really good. And when she is bad, it's still kind of good. Does
I
that
hear
make
ya.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not everything that she's written has turned to gold or anything, and a lot of the stuff that she does generally throughout her career has been like adaptation work. So
Right.
like she did like for example, she didn't write Black Butler, she adapted it. She didn't write Fate Stay Night 2006. She just adapted it from another
Mhm.
work. So that's what the majority of her, work credits have been.
Right.
Um, but I think when it comes to her original stuff, especially Anohana and this film, I confess I haven't seen Anthem of the Heart yet, but I've heard that's also really good. I've really enjoyed all of her original stuff, so I think she's really good. So
Yeah.
I always look forward to seeing something Mario Kata related because I
Oh,
know
same.
I know kind of what I'm gonna get, and it's gonna be
Mhm.
something that's very emotion fused, and I like to see that in anime because I mean it just really irks me in general whenever I watch movies or shows or anything like that that focus just so much on plot and concept that they forget about
Their
emotion.
characters and
Yeah,
emotions.
exactly, and making the characters' emotions like obvious, like and you
Yeah,
definitely feel that in this film as well because there's
I
just
know.
so many raw moments especially there towards the end that just get your heart
I
turning
know.
and rumbling and rolling. Yeah, it's good, good, really good ending, very emotionally charged.
Mhm.
It got me to cry too. So this, I told you as we were walking out of the theater, like only three anime have made me cry ever, and it's been Anohana and Death Parade, and now this movie. So I'll add that to the collection as well. So final question,
Mhm.
to you, what is your most memorable moment of the film, or like the most
Uh-huh.
like iconic moment from the film that you can
Am I
think
allowed to
of?
have more than one?
You can list them, but you have to choose one.
Okay. Oh God. I don't know if I want to pick physically or emotionally, because I'm a very emotionally driven person.
Go for emotion, because I know that that would mean more to you.
I know, and I feel like my physical one is probably going to be the same as yours, maybe.
Okay.
So emotionally, just those last few scenes of like uh Ariel seeing his baby and being like, "Wow, that's my baby."
Yeah.
And when she goes to visit him at the end of his life, I was just like, that's incredible because I'm trying not to cry right now. um, I'm sure that that's something that must have been very, very hard on her. Um, because she, saw him from beginning to end,
Mm-hmm.
And that's rough. And then I'm sure he spent most of his life probably thinking about whether or not if she was okay and whether or not if she was ever going to see him again. So
Mm-hmm.
that really got to me. So
Yeah, he says something like "Welcome back" or something is like
yeah,
his final words to her, and that's just oh
I know.
oh man, it hurt. It hurt so bad, man. But it's such a good hurt because
I know.
like you get to see his daughter and his
His
granddaughter
granddaughter.
just hanging out. They got this beautiful house in the countryside, and his wife had passed, and it was just his time, and it was
I
just
know.
very very touching, very touching. So would that be your iconic moment, or would it be him seeing his baby for the first time?
Ooh. Don't make me
Also,
choose.
also Shinzo Abe. This is how you convince people to have children.
Absolutely.
Not Darling in the
No
Franxx.
forced teen pregnancy. We have enough of that in the United States. We don't need it in another country.
Oh dear.
Apparently it's gone down though, so that's something. But
Hey, good news.
yeah. Um I I guess it would be the end. Like the her going back to him. I don't know. All of that at the end destroyed me. But yeah, I guess that because that really is the culmination of the entire story. So,
Mm-hmm. I think if I had to pick, there's a couple. I'm gonna say a couple as well, but I'm gonna try and pick one because I
okay.
told you you had to pick one, so I'm gonna have to pick one too.
Double
Um,
standard.
exactly. I don't want to do that for sure. Um, I love the scene where he's out in the rain as a little boy, and he's just like, "You thought my skin
Yeah.
melted off or something like
I
that,"
shed
because
my
he
skin.
yeah, I shed my skin because he took off his clothes in the rain whenever she was looking for him,
Yeah.
and then they have just this tender moment where she's about to cry, and he's like, "You can't cry, you're a mom," or something like that, and then she slaps her belly just like the other mom did, and she's like, "You're right, I can't." That's a really touching moment from earlier on in the
Mhm.
movie, and the whole goat scene just cracked me the heck up. Like I keep thinking about that, and it's just so silly but so honest at the same time.
yeah.
Like that was just so good, but I think I will have to agree with you and pick the same one of like the ending
Mhm.
sequence, like the whole thing being what's gonna really stick with me for a long, long time. And
Yeah.
I mean the whole sequence too, like whenever she walks outside and she thinks she's gonna have her composure, but she
Yeah.
just lets it all loose and
And
then
like
she
balls. I was like, me too, Maquia.
yeah, like she just balls it out and then she gets on the cart with the other guy and just rides off and
Goes
then the
on.
camera pans up and we get that beautiful ending song and then the movie is over and then,
Yeah.
you know,
I
good sad feels were had by all.
oh yeah. I really like that scene too. And this is where I thought maybe you might have gone. When the war was going on and it kept cutting back and forth between that and like Dita like in
Oh
labor.
yeah. Yes, that was a really great filmmaking moment. I do
Yeah.
remember telling you, like, leaning to you and being like, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this in a movie before, where they were juxtaposing images of war with images of childbirth, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, because like even in death there's life. So
That too, and just the fact that you even said it as kind of a joke. You were just like, yeah, giving birth to a child must be kind of like war. So it works on many different levels there for sure. That's another
yeah.
good scene. All right, Tori. Well, I think that kind of wraps us up on Maquia. Uh, unless there was anything else you wanted to say.
Um no, I think we covered it all. Just be kind to moms.
Yep. Go be kind to moms, single moms especially, or the real heroes. And yeah, go out there and love somebody. Go out
Yeah.
there and you know, give somebody a hug and tell them how great they are. And go watch this movie. It's a good movie.
Absolutely.
Go check it out. I think it's still in theaters as of the time of this recording. I don't know how much longer it will be, but try and go check it out. And even if you don't end up loving it, well, just go support anime in the theaters because the more times people go, the more likely it is that we will be getting more of them in the future. So thank you, Tori. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being on this episode and talking about this movie. Uh, yeah, it was really, really, really great episode. Really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in closing, Tori, where can
Yes.
people find you on social media?
I'm usually screaming into the void on Twitter at worst waifu.
Cool. And you can find me on Twitter as well at Bebop Shock, and that's Bebop as in Cowboy Bebop, and Shock as in Bioshock. And probably the best place to talk to all of us in Third Impact Anime is to pop on over to that Facebook group that we've just got started. It is if you go on Facebook and look for facebook.com/slash Third Impact Anime, you can find our Facebook page there, and the group is linked to it. So just go ahead and add yourself there. There's a small but growing community of fans going on there, and we're trying to keep it fun, keep it lively, keep it, talking about anime and fan culture and all that stuff. And so it's just a generally good time. We're all sort of, floating in and out of that group from time to time. And as for general Third Impact stuff, you can always visit us on our website, which is thirdimpactanime.wordpress.com. And you can find this particular podcast on pretty much any podcasting service that you can think of, Stitcher, Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, all that good stuff. And please, if you guys enjoyed this episode or have listened to another episode in the past or have attended one of our panels before, please consider popping over to our Facebook page and giving us a star rating and a review if you would be so kind. That really helps us understand how to make better panels and how to make better podcasts and how to generally be better people at the end of the day. So thank you again, Tori. It was an
Yeah,
absolute pleasure to have you on. Can't wait to have you back on again.
anytime.
All right, and that's the end of our episode for this time, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.